Hello, I'm DonnyXCage. Alright, Rings of Power, Season 2, Episode 6. Somehow I cannot believe that this show is still being released episodically. I would have assumed that they would just release it all at once, because this show is a complete dud. That being said, if you haven't seen the episode, and you don't want it spoiled for you, there will be spoilers up ahead, so please save this video for later, and come back when you're all caught up. Thank you. Our show opens with Legonaut, and he pulls up on some archers. He deals with them quickly, and then the next thing you know, Celebrimbor's talking to a piece of metal. Now, he's not a happy elf today, and when they tell him that there's no mithril because the dwarves are late with their shipment, this chick tells Celebrimbor that he's angry lately. And what does he respond with?
Some of us have noticed you seem especially ill-tempered of late, my lord.
Bitch, who are you? Apparently, he's finding it hard to remember shit, so Sauron comes in to check on his wife Celebrimbor. So he gives him an update that he needs to, tend to his people in Eregion, but Celebrimbor says not until he finishes the rings. He's a hard worker, you see, and that means ignoring the city that you're in charge of. He also asks Sauron to see to the late delivery of mithril. Sauron tells the people that he's taking over administrative duties. They tell him about a body they found, and he says bury it and show it to no one. Except the body is out in the open where everyone can see it in the middle of the town square. So Merdania is this chick's name, I guess. Well, she's worried about Celebrimbor because he didn't remember her name. But I don't either, so maybe the Rings of Power are affecting me too. Sauron tries to seduce this chick some more, and by seduce, I mean be creepy and obviously insincere, which is staggering to say the least, considering that this man is supposed to be charismatically charming and seducing people into giving him what he wants. Well, I guess Sauron is the only elf with enhanced sight, and by enhanced sight, I mean regular sight, because he can see the obvious orcs at literal spitting distance. Adar's having dinner with Galadriel. This poor motherfucker. I feel for him. He talks shit about her being obsessed with Sauron, which is based. He tells her she is in Sauron's grass all the same as he once was. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. She's an insufferable hag. You can argue she's acting appropriately towards an enemy of her people. However, if she weren't written to be the girl boss that she is, and instead to be a capable military leader, then she would realize that this is a great opportunity that she has. She has an opportunity to build a temporary alliance with Adar, not to mention what I imagine is a truly rare opportunity to hear the mind and thoughts of the leader of the orcs, insights that could help her in the battles to come. But yeah, she settles on being this insufferable dickbag, so that's what we get. She calls him an orc, and he corrects her to call him an Uruk. He tells her about the time that he stabbed Sauron with Margroth's helmet. He says that he thinks the crown and the power of the elven rings can kill Sauron for good. He says that he knows Sauron is Halbrand, and he knows he's hiding in Eregion. For an orc, this guy seems pretty sensible. More sensible than Galadriel, which makes me laugh. It makes me laugh at the sheer stupidity of this show. It truly baffles me how these shows want to make the bad guys look decent and the good guys to look like fools. But they're so torn, right? Because they're still trying to make Galadriel look respectable, but everything on screen tells us that's to be the opposite. Anyway, Gazon, the new ruler of Numenor, says the captain will be pardoned should he pledge allegiance. He doesn't pledge. In fact, he calls Gazon a traitor.
The only traitor here is you.
Fuck your life! Bing bong!
They suggest that the Valar decide his fate since he loves the old elven law so much. And we see like this picture of like a kraken or something, whatever. Gorndorf sees a vision of Nori. Tom Bombadil is just as annoying as I remembered.
It shows tomorrow's clouds as clear as yesterday's sunshine.
With all due respect, what the fuck are you talking about?
Nori is talking to the store lady, and she says she ain't leaving.
I'm not fucking leaving!
She talks about how this place isn't just where they live, it's their home. Poppy and Mary Mac kiss, and I feel nothing. That's not true. I feel annoyance. Why, oh why, would anyone give a fuck about this? They've been on screen together like 3 times, this being the only time that they've been together alone and had dialogue, none of which has earned even an ounce of people giving a shit about these 2 little dirty shits kissing. Tom takes Gorndolf shopping to go get a new staff. Gorndolf says it'll take months to find which tree is the tree that has his staff on it. He shares his fear that Nori will die if he doesn't go to help them. Tom uses this line,
Many that die deserve life. Some that live deserve death. Who are you to give it to them?
Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them, Frodo?
Oh, look at you! You're so unoriginal.
which is a line from Fellowship of the Rings, a powerful line from a far superior piece of media in every conceivable way. Back in Dwarftown, Durin the Younger comes before Durin the King, and Sauron is there. Anyway, Sauron came to see what's going on with the dwarves. He even offers them whatever they want to get Mithril. Sauron sees the Balrog in the flames of the torch and leaves without an argument. They've been trying to tee up this Balrog since literally season 1, and I guarantee it won't save this show. The king tells his son that basically he's saying no and playing hard to get for now because he knows that Mithril will be desired in the war to come. They're showing us how much he's been consumed by greed, and we see that by the riches that are laying around his throne now. He tells him to take off the ring, and the king doesn't. When he tries to take the ring off him, he tosses him aside easily with the power of the ring. Disa wants them to stand their ground in front of the mines and stop people. Should the king turn the army on them, it'll show the dwarf kingdom how far he's fallen. Durin is torn and is brought to tears thinking of losing his father. Disa, instead of being an insufferable shit, sees this for what it is.
Durin, I can't do it.
Hey everybody, how's it going? As you can tell, I'm adding this in after I originally record it, because, I noticed something while I was editing. Now, I think I mentioned it smallly more towards the end of the video, but I did want to take the time just to kind of speak on this moment because I felt like I didn't address it properly. This moment between Durin and Disa is, I think, a very powerful moment. It's one of the few moments that I can say where I feel like the show did something well. Again, if you're ignoring some of the more bad story writing that kind of is going on surrounding it, and you look at it for what it is, I'm surprised that it made it into the show, quite frankly. Typically, in more modern projects that we get in the film and television industry, they like to take advantage and tear down heterosexual straight men, and especially if they're white. Now, I don't know, maybe they gave him a pass because he's a ginger and a dwarf, but this moment where Durin is starting to break down at the thought of, what's happening to his father, and Disa sees that he's starting to break down and she changes her tone. I think this is a really good piece of not just femininity, in its greatest form, but also a good example of compassion and understanding. So I wanted to add that in my little editor note. But yeah, if you agree, let me know. But let's continue the review. Thanks. And turns into a more calming and empathetic tone, telling Durin that his father is bringing danger to all the dwarves and they're doing the right thing. A very wifely thing to do, if I may say so myself. Back in Numenor, this annoying lady comes in, crying to her father, begging him to change his mind. Anyway, she begged Pharazôn to allow Miriel to come to the captain. Miriel commands him to bow to Pharazôn. Miriel breaks down at the idea of losing this guy, but he tells her the sea is always right.
The sea is always right.
Yeah, science. Hilarious.
Down in Dwarfdom, the miners come across Disa, who's standing firm to stop the miners from coming into the mines. She starts singing and they kind of laugh at her.
Is that meant to frighten us off?
No. They are.
I want to ask you both, because this is, I would say, arguably the gayest Star Wars, I think, by a considerable margin.
And then some bats that she summoned up come and scare them off. The captain is to be offered to the sea. Let's pause here a second. You see how we keep whipping back and forth between these stories? I fucking hate it. It's mental whiplash and it becomes exhausting. They're so desperate to cause anticipation and pad out the runtimes. Most of this shit doesn't even need to be here, let alone have people whip back and forth between the stories. Anyway, there's a giant sea monster that is maybe gonna eat Captain Fuckwit. They put on this lame ceremony and they want to toss him into the sea. Miriel shows up and says to send her in his place. So according to the old laws, Miriel is right and she goes into the sea. Really, it's like this little basin on the edge of the sea that has like a, I don't know, whatever. And yeah, we see the monster coming. My first thought was, has anyone ever survived this fucking decision of the sea? It seems like one of those stories they tell you about medieval times if they wanted to test if a woman was a witch, so they tie a brick to her and toss her in a lake. Anyway, Miriel comes face to face with the Kraken. He sees her and he's like, I'm not eating this. And she survives, so she's deemed innocent. Farazan looks like the most miserable, exhausted pussy that he is. The captain yells, "Hail, Miriel, queen of the sea," and everyone changes their tone. They start cheering for a bitch they hated literally 10 seconds ago. Like unfaithful NFL fans screaming for whoever the winning team is. Farazan touches the Palantir and he sees the fires of Mordor. Back with everyone's favorite downer, Galadriel. She's talking to Adar and she starts talking like they've been on each other's side the whole time. She suggests a momentary advantage, which I suppose is supposed to let me and the audience and Adar know that she's changing sides. Her plan is to overcome Sauron, but Adar says her High King would betray them and not leave the orcs in peace. This is moronic for reasons I can't even fathom to explain right now. Anyway, he shows her the true amount of orcs that he has behind him. The orc with the family hesitates to give Adar the war horn after hearing Galadriel scream that this is what Sauron wants. Adar doesn't give a shit and blows the horn, signaling the orcs to march on Eregion. Let me pose this to you, my beloved audience. Adar knew Sauron was Halbrand. He knew he was in Eregion. He knew the High King wouldn't leave the orcs to do their own thing in Mordor. However, this show would have you believe that Adar chose to do this whole song and dance with Galadriel to confirm his suspicions. Do you see how this show treats you like a moron? How this show treats you as if you have the short-term memory of a horny chihuahua and no long-term memory beyond getting your little balls tingly? Because these characters have the same name as the ones from that movie in the 2000s. Wow. Why the short-term memory of a horny chihuahua, you ask? When I was a young warthog. My mother had chihuahuas. We suffered the endless yapping for years. Don't get me wrong, I love them to death. They were cute when they were quiet. The worst time of the year, though, was when they were in heat. Boy, oh boy, if you think those dogs are loud normally, good God, they get much louder. Anyway, this show treats you like a horny chihuahua every time they try to ship characters together. Don, I hear you ask, what is shipping? Shipping is what talentless hacks do when the story they write is boring. They force an ambiguous will they, won't they, and in true fashion, the shippers eventually out themselves. Whether it's long-term or short-term, it always happens. In Rings of Power, they try to get everyone hot and bothered over Galadriel, the shipping of Halbrand, Sauron, and Galadriel, mortal enemies, mind you. Then they ship Halbrand with this boring chick from Eregion. There are probably people who are somehow excited about Poppy and Mary Mac. I don't know why. What's the difference between shipping and writing romance, Don? I'm glad you asked, my beloved viewer. Google's AI would tell you this, and I quote, "The main difference between shipping and romance is that shipping is the act of wanting two or more people or characters to be in a romantic relationship, while romance is the feeling of being in love or an exciting relationship between lovers." End quote. Here's my take. When you force romance, when the characters have no chemistry, when you have to tell your audience about the shipping of two characters, then you've written fan fiction and a hollow relationship between two characters. Let's use characters from this show as an example. Dude and Indisa, while not necessarily shipped, I mean, they're already married for Christ's sakes, but I think they still count because people out there like them together. I would argue they are actually a somewhat decent romance. Now, I must say that you have to ignore plot holes and terrible story development, but if you can do that, then yes, This would be an okay example of a romance in a show. Durin and Disa feel natural together. We see how they talk to each other. We see how they rely on each other. We see how they confide in each other. Even some moments are funny or even downright emotional. Poppy and Mary Mac. While I can't fathom anyone shipping these two, the show obviously wants you to. Even go so far as to put them together without any true chemistry or bond being formed between them. Their first scene alone together results in them kissing, and I'm unsure if she even liked it. She asks him if he ate a lizard recently.
Do you have lizard for supper?
Why do you ask?
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
You could argue maybe I'm wrong about this, but am I? This show itself promotes the shipping of Halbrand and Galadriel, and I won't even waste my time in deep diving into the contrived fucking mess of a fomance that is. This show thinks dropping these little romances will get you all drowned in the desire to see these characters being together and forget the crumbling storylines and the decisions that make no sense for these people to be in these positions. Let's move on before I have a stroke. We see Celebrimbor drawing rings. Apparently he can't hear the war bells from up there, but I guess he can a little bit. I don't fucking know. Sauron stops him from going outside. They get into a lover's quarrel, and he does something, I guess, to change what Celebrimbor can see. I didn't know that was a power he had. So when he goes outside, he sees everything is peaceful and happy, when it's not. They talk about forging more rings, and he somehow got mithril from the dwarves. That isn't explained. This is probably another attempt to pad out the run times. I wouldn't be surprised if the next episode wastes time showing how he got the mithril and what's happening with his seal door, keeping the battle from the last episode for the finale. Sauron talking to his wife says the name of the show.
The Rings of Power.
The show ends as the battle begins, because suspense. This show has somehow gone from shit to making me think that maybe they were going to turn it around in episode 2 to absolute diarrhea. As each episode comes out, I continue to wonder how it is exactly that these people get hired. Shows like this one are terrible in a way not dissimilar of Disney's The Acolyte, but also in its own terrible way. Disney's The Acolyte was a show with a $180 million budget. The Rings of Power Season 1 was supposedly $465 million, jumping to a whopping $700 million when the rights to Tolkien's lore is included. Season 2 is supposedly more than the original season's budget because of the scenes that were filmed. Let that sink in. The Peter Jackson Lord of the Ring trilogy was $93 million per movie. That's $372 million. You can factor in inflation if you want, but the end result is still the same. You have a TV series that's budget exceeds its talent or potential. If we're lucky, they'll pull the plug the same way Disney pulled the plug on The Acolyte. Amazon says 40 million people are watching the show, with Amazon unwilling to share how they decide what counts as a view, I might add. This might mean if you accidentally click the link to Rings of Power and it starts up, that counts as a view. Other outlets are reporting that Rings of Power has lost more than half its original viewers from the start of season 1 to season 2 currently. I suspect the reality is more and more people are realizing the true nature of shows like these. The shows are disingenuous and poorly written, which results in people clicking out of the episode before they even hit the 10-minute mark. I'm willing to bet that others are looking at the runtime and wondering how nothing happened in the 40 minutes they've been watching the show. One thing I know for certain is that more and more people are not watching the show and electing to watch their favorite YouTubers roast the show, because the unbearable truth that these corporations refuse to believe, and what's important for you all to remember, the corporation and the studios are now competing against their own audiences. Because people would rather watch a YouTuber they respect, believe to be honest, and or just find funny. Because at least that won't be a waste of time and they actually get entertained. Don't believe me? That's fine. YouTube has 2.49 billion active users. YouTube, according to the Nielsen's report, accounts for 9.7% of all TV viewership in the US in May. And I'm sure that number is only going to go up and is probably just as big globally. As far as I'm concerned with this show, I'm basically waiting for the inevitable end. I find the story to be a complete slog, filled with characters who do things that make no sense or are unaligned with their character. The show struggles to build real tension or real relationships. While the show continues to hammer me with the stakes, I feel no stakes whatsoever. Everyone who has been manipulated by Sauron has led me to the conclusion that they deserve to fail. Galadriel, who we were promised was on an arc, has no arc to speak of. They wrote one episode where she found a little bit of humility, if you can call it that, and then by the next episode, it was dispensed with. Isildur has survived unbelievable odds, and not in a way that makes you cheer for him as a hero, but in a way that shows the writing for what it is, contrived. How is it Galadriel can just take on this wave of volcanic ash unharmed, yet Miriel becomes blinded? Hell, Isildur is buried in a burning house, but is completely unharmed. You know, even when I try to put the terrible story elements to the side and say, okay, I'll bite into one of these romances like they want me to, show me what you got.
Show me what you got. I want to see what you got.
I was still let down. Estrid was a character that I felt could be wholly unnecessary, but had potential. The romance had potential. Here's the problems. She has a betrothed, but nothing about her betrothed is said to be bad or that she didn't really want to be with him. Even ignoring that, she's supposed to be looking for him to find if he's dead. Now, a couple episodes ago, you could have argued that she's a wildman and that this was all just a ruse. Except when they do reunite, it's played out like they really didn't know that the other was alive.
Estrid!
Hagen! Well, I thought you...
So did I.
You lying ass bitch.
Which makes everything between her and Isildur tainted in a way that I can't find myself to cheer on a relationship developing. As cute and noble as this girl slowly turns out to be, the fact remains that she began to flirt and lead on a man while actively searching for her betrothed who may have been slaughtered. So all of her nobility and all her good deeds she does is sullied completely by this. At this point, I'm yelling into shit-filled winds. And the problem with yelling into shit-filled winds is that inevitably I'll need air. And yelling results in the need to take deep breaths. That in turn results in me taking shit-filled winds deep into my lungs.
Beware, my friend. Shit winds are a-comin'.
And I don't need that. All that being said, I do want to say this. If you enjoy the show and disagree, that's perfectly fine. It feels all too common these days to have to remind people that disagreements don't make us enemies. As I always say, you're welcome in the comments. My sister is someone who doesn't seem to mind the show and watches it as the episodes come out. She's easily the best sister a man could hope to have. I bring this up because I've enjoyed the conversations I've had with her about the show and hearing her opinion on things. With that being said, it's been well overdue that I thank her for her support, as well as my brothers who have been nothing but supportive to me, my military family, and finally, you all, the viewers. Thank you to the 153 subscribers, and I am greatly appreciative of all of you coming on and giving the reviews your time. I look forward to making more reviews and seeing the channel grow. Thanks again. If you didn't like the video and you made it this far, I thank you as well for giving the video a chance. I welcome you to leave your feedback below, and if you like the review, please do all those wonderful things YouTubers ask you to do. Like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your hot single aunt about me. I'll see you in the next one. No matter where you are on this beautiful blue marble of ours, good day, good evening, and good night.
They bots, these bitches don't have ass, they shots, and they still tuned in if they fans or not. Allegations from the opposition, bitch niggas just eating it up. These blogs get paid to lie, y'all talk shit and be broke as fuck. Bottom line is I'm still rich, you making bad and I'm still good. Bringing up who might have fucked, and the bottom line is they still would. I just wanna fuck my nigga in peace, but all my old niggas still love me. Niggas ain't hit this pussy in years, damn, I knew my shit was heat. None of you niggas was wifey material, none of you niggas was worth all the drama. None of you niggas was hitting it raw and mad, I'm not one of your baby mamas. Always got my ass out, always let my titties show. When I'm in the gym, I think about bitches that I'm shitting on.